Here on The Colour of Country Life, we're chatting with Meat and Livestock Australia's Steve Bignell. How are you going, Steve?
Yeah, good, thanks, Ricky.
I'm looking at your indicators, Eastern Young Cattle Indicator and the Trade Lamb Indicator. We might talk about lambs first. Both on the way up. Is that simply a factor of there's a whole lot of rain and so people go, yep, let's go shopping?
You know, there's always a sort of seasonal element to the lamb market. Lamb market has climbed close to 5% this week, up 44 cents to 815 cents, and it's actually across a lot of the different categories. So we've seen heavy lambs as well pick up, and the main one is it's probably more linked to slaughter.
Yep, and so that's what processors jumping into the market and getting the processing houses cranking again.
Yeah, so normally we'd be sort of starting to see sort of the winter processing, processing sort of a little lulling for winter. We've actually, because we've got a bit of a backlog of lambs, we've got slaughter for the last 4 weeks has been well above where it was in the last 2 years. So with that more slaughter, there is more, processors are being a bit more active at this time of the year.
And have we seen that across the country, or are there pockets where there's a bit more action in terms of, I guess, volume traded and what farmers are taking to market as opposed to other parts of the country?
It's generally lifted across the board. The one is WA is where we're seeing some of those indicators, and it's more generally your restocker lamb and your light lamb. There's a bigger divergence to the East Coast, and that's just because over there, less sort of dedicated prime lamb operations. So there aren't people who are buying light lambs to put kilos on before adding them to the processor, and because they've processors and because they're now well and truly in the cropping phase, there aren't people sort of looking for those light lambs. So in the restocker and light lambs, there is probably a bit more of a discount in the west at the moment, but everywhere else is performing well.
I have wondered about the livestock front, particularly in Victoria, because some commentary we picked up from Rabobank during the week was the indication there's a 10% increase in the cropping area planted in Victoria this year. Maybe that's a driver, potentially, is that they're going, well, what we'd normally be grazing, we might crop this year.
Yeah, we've seen that in previous years, and obviously where grain prices are, those mixed croppers and sheep operations are doing that resource allocation and diverting their resources. When we have seen that in the past, we have seen areas of, it happened back in 2020, is where areas in sort of the south western Victoria, when they transitioned to cropping more, we actually didn't see lamb numbers go down in the area so much. We saw a more seasonal approach where people started trading lambs on and off stubbles in that summer period.
All right. Now, looking at the Eastern Young Cattle Indicator, we've talked to a number of analysts, Steve, and they're all scratching their heads over the last couple of years. No one's going to predict where it's going. I'm not going to ask you to predict it, but it looks like it's going up again.
Yeah, it does, definitely does. It obviously went below the $11 mark for quite some time. An interesting dynamic that we've seen increased head this week and increased price. So it's come up about 16 cents this week, and it's sitting at 11.29. The key driver is we obviously lost Roma a few weeks back. Didn't go ahead because of the rain, but what that means again is those Queensland yards, they've had a lot of rain. They're more active, and those restockers in southeast Queensland are really active, and they're buying a lot of cattle again. The restockers are really driving that as well. So that's the piece is there's been a good rain in southern Queensland. Restockers are buying 54% of all young cattle, which, a few weeks back it was sitting at 40. They're paying a premium, and so it's those restockers in Queensland that are driving this price up.
Yeah, there's little wonder when you look at the Bureau of Meteorology projections through the winter. There's a whole lot of dark blue indicating above average expectations of rainfall right through Western Queensland, which is fantastic news when you consider how tough they were doing it not that long ago.
Yeah, definitely. And I suppose the piece is when restockers are buying and very active, and they're buying largely yearling steers, which they'll sell off into the feeder market or they'll finish out and sell as finished animals. They obviously have longer-term confidence in the market. So when restockers are active, it shows that producers have a really good outlook on the future.
All right, well, Steve, thanks for joining us today on Flow. Appreciate your comments, and we'll keep watching these markets with interest.
Awesome, thanks.